You can't avoid hate or hold anger towards the experiences and stories that shaped you and expect to heal in any meaningful way. This pretty much sums up my conversation with Vevian Vozmediano, a trauma-informed life and wellness coach who helps women connect to the parts of themselves they are too afraid to explore by themselves. Vevian is passionate about healing the disconnection to our most authentic selves and providing a safe space for people to explore that, believing that true healing begins when we feel safe enough to connect to our intuition, gut instinct, emotions, and bodily sensations. Because when we have a strong, self-accepting, and compassionate relationship with ourselves, everything in our life has the possibility of thriving. Now, if you've been around long enough, you know that I have a deep admiration and respect for anyone who is not only willing to unapologetically speak their truth, but also have the courage to wade into controversial and stigmatizing conversations, which is exactly what we did, and it's the space I love to live in. From intergenerational trauma to harms being perpetrated within modern psychiatric models to our deepest parental wounding and plant medicine, we cover it all. And I refuse to place any disclaimers on this conversation because cultivating the ability to critically question social norms is a strength, not a liability. And also, if you're unable to take full responsibility for the application of the information you ingest on a daily basis, the Grand Rising experience is simply not for you. I don't believe in coincidences, and I know that Vevian and I were destined to connect. We absolutely have a soul bond that transcends this particular reality. And we also hold a similar philosophy on healing in the way that we both understand that everything and everyone appearing in your reality is here to reflect back to you the relationship that you have with yourself. A relationship that has been formed and conditioned through your ancestry, environments, and life experiences. A relationship that can only be healed and transformed through unyielding curiosity and compassionate inquiry. So, keeping true to Grand Rising, our conversation begins with the concept of intergenerational trauma and just flows in every direction from there, and I love it. If at any time during this conversation you were like, this woman is speaking my language, all of the ways that you can connect with Vevian will be listed in the show notes, along with links to some of the resources that we mention. I'm so happy you're here. I love you. Let's dive in. Hi, Vevian. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's beautiful to see you again. And we're having a moment just as we kind of came onto the call, because the first time we met, we were wearing the same color sweater, and it was like kind of an odd mustard yellow. So not something you would commonly see. And then we jump onto the call today, and again, we are wearing the same color sweater, which is, if I post the video, you'll see it. Not common, but here we are. And we're here today to have a conversation about intergenerational trauma and how that affects us not only at a surface level and how we interact with the world, but also the relationship that we have with ourselves, which ultimately is the only relationship that you have with the world. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because I know it can go in so many directions. And I think a great launch point for this is, what the heck is intergenerational trauma?
Oh, first of all, I think that what you just talked about, that relationship, we're based on relationship, the relationship we have with ourselves and the relationship we have with other people. And without relationships, what do we have then? But I think what people are really, there's this huge gap right now when it comes to working on trauma in the therapy world, is this intergenerational piece. Because people, I'm living in Sweden currently, and the majority of therapy here is cognitive behavioral therapy, which just deals with the behavior of people which you can only get so far. And I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question about what is intergenerational trauma, but I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit. And cognitive behavioral therapy and is just changing your behaviors. It's like going on a diet to lose weight. Once you stop going on this diet and go back to your normal eating habits, you're going to gain the weight back. So changing your current behavior is very surface, whereas you're really getting to the root cause. Okay, if again, going back to the diet situation here, if I really think, am I eating emotionally? Yes. Am I actually enjoying what I'm eating? No. Like, get really real with yourself and really dissect things. So you get really in a much more clear perspective. So going back to therapy and this intergenerational trauma piece that I feel like is really missing out here. The fact that certain behaviors and certain attributes and certain traits that we have now that we are going to therapy for, or working with a coach or working with a counselor, is not only our own. There's a book called It Didn't Start With You by, you know about that book, which is, it's such, I was going to say, it's such an incredible book, because essentially the trauma that we carry, how we perceive ourselves, the shame, the guilt, a lot of the pain, sometimes it has nothing to do with our own stories. It has much to do with the situational of our ancestors, and then which got passed down to our parents and how our parents raised us. So this intergenerational trauma of shame, like I said, is really deep in my personal culture, coming from a Middle Eastern culture. I'm Chaldean, which is a very old culture. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, modern day Mesopotamia. The shame amongst the women who were just toted around as sexual creatures. Women are just there for cooking, cleaning, having kids, and don't really have a voice. And the men is more of the dominant protector, more of the masculine role. But just the shame around just being a human, not even just being a woman, but just being a human, and recognizing that breaking myself away, like breaking that umbilical cord with my lineage, and really looking at my lineage through, like I was talking about before this conversation, with a fine-tooth comb of just really observing what kind of trauma have I been handed down from both of my parents. And again, I'm not blaming them. I'm not pointing the finger at them and saying, I'm this way because of you. But I have so much compassion around them, because again, they are raised from their parents. And I know everyone says they did their best, quote unquote. I don't even like to use that word, because I don't know if people do their best sometimes. They just do what they feel like they know how to do. And again, this is just my personal opinion, but yeah, I just feel like people are carrying such heavy loads with them from one generation to the next generation. And most people don't want to do the work, don't want to work through the emotions, because you can't go from bottling up your emotions to all of a sudden feeling like free and liberated and full of peace. There's this in between, and that in between is the acceptance of, I didn't have the life that I needed. I didn't have the parents that I needed. And to really feel that, because that, sitting with the pain of not having the family and the parents I needed, is painful, and acknowledging that. And I also understand that some people don't want to play the victim, but acknowledging your past is not being the victim. You have to acknowledge your past in order to move forward. Some people just want to go from the past. Why do we have to talk about the past? Let's just get over it. Let's just work through it, or not work through it. Just let's get over it. We don't need to talk about the past to move forward. Let's just keep on moving forward. That's not how it works. It's not. And the healing journey of working through intergenerational trauma is so important, because again, talking from my own personal experience, is that my parents, looking at their childhood and how their parents raised them, carried on to me. I say that we inherit our parents' trauma just as much as we inherit their features, like their nose, their eyes. It just kind of gets distorted in a different way. So maybe your mom was sexually abused by an uncle or a grandfather, and she developed some kind of eating habits to control the way she looks, or she's really covering up her body. There's somehow some way that it affected her. And maybe you don't even know she was sexually abused. You found that out after she passed. But then you inherited bulimia because you saw your mom was really trying to control her food, and she was just all about food control, and she would criticize you if you gained weight. And it's just like one generation. And then you're like, what happened? What happened here? What happened here? Like, people don't stop to ask, what happened? What's going on? They just want a quick fix. So they feel like if they change their behaviors, everything is going to be okay. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on this like random huge rant that like went to all different kinds of directions.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So it's interesting. So we'll go all the way back. When you were talking about the book by Mark Wolynn, It Didn't Start With You. Something I loved about that book is that, because you're just talking about how you end up with things that you don't know you end up with. He gets into language, heavily into language, and how to start mapping the words that we use and the language that we use to describe certain circumstances. And I think everyone can relate to the fact that, like, you know, you open your mouth and your mother comes out. You have no idea how that happened. But I know that book for me, so transformative in trying to really understand why I was the way I was, why I was doing what I was doing, why I could see all of these patterns playing out that I really didn't want to participate with, but didn't really feel like I had any control or charge over. And in my life, I have a really unique situation where on my maternal side, my maternal grandmother lived with us my entire life from the time I was born until I was 16 when she passed. And I really got to see the dynamic between her and my mom. Now, my grandfather passed when my mom was only 2 years old. She has two older sisters where there's 14 years difference. And throughout my life, I've been in situations where I've lived with some of my other cousins and one of her sisters. And I get to see the impact of how my grandmother was at different stages of her life, you know, while she was with her husband and newlywed and blissful. And then, you know, as life gets a little harder, and then what it looked like and how that grief played out and how it impacted all of the women in our family. And my grandmother had 3 girls. And so far, they had all girls. And now the girls are only having boys. And it's really interesting because there's like this deep feminine wound that exists in our family. And it was like through reading this book that I was like, holy shit, this is all starting to make sense to me. And you go from being that person that sits in therapy complaining about your parents for like 10 years to going, oh, like you just have such a different level of compassionate inquiry, which I know is something that you're actually legitimately trained in. But it goes to a place of compassion. And it doesn't mean that you're letting people off the hook necessarily for some of the behaviors or things that have transpired. But when you can see someone through their wounding, you can then decide, am I going to punish them for it? Am I going to forgive them for it? Would I want to be forgiven for something that I literally didn't have conscious awareness of? And then it does change the dynamic going forward. And then how you get to really choose how you start to show up in relationship, right? And we're in a culture right now where people just, I'm guilty of it. I'm a runner. Like, it took me a long time to realize, like, wherever you go, there you are. Like, you just show up everywhere. And if something was really deeply uncomfortable, I just like cut it off. Like, I'm out, peace. But now I can sit in that discomfort a little longer, and I can sit and have that self inquiry and self reflection and figure out what this is triggering inside of me. And is it mine? And we'll probably get into this later because that's part of that intuitive development that women have lost, to be able to sit there and go, okay, I'm holding space for people and absorbing everything around me, but like, is it mine? Is it theirs? Like, where is this coming from? I don't know how to process it. And then it just, all of your shit comes out around all of it. So it's so fascinating. Like, I'm fascinated by this work, because I know how deeply transformative it can be, and how it does, to me, that's spontaneous healing as well. As long as it can take to get there, in the quantum, kind of everything's already done. And this is where you can have like spontaneous healing as well and really break those chains of bondage that we end up in for generation over generation over generation.
Mhm. I couldn't agree with you more. And like you were saying, when you really go down the rabbit hole of your parents and see what they've been through in your grandparents, you can decide then about the compassionate piece, because that's huge. My father was very abusive growing up to my mother, physically and verbally, like to the point where she almost died a couple times. He got put in jail, and due to some plant medicine, some ayahuasca journeys, I came to this realization that my father had been sexually abused as a child. Went on to just, again, do some research. Could not ask my father about that because that's way too personal. And being an old Middle Eastern man, he's 86 years old now, definitely not something to talk about. But I definitely feel that that's something that happened to him as a very small child. He lost his father as well as a young kid. And that triggered what happened then to abuse my mom, because she switched from being Catholic, the religion that we were, to being a Jehovah's Witness. And that triggered the whole emotional and verbal abuse to my mother. Again, I'm not validating or just saying that it was okay for him to behave that way, but I really needed to understand my dad and go down that rabbit hole of his childhood to then have the compassion for him that I needed to, one, forgive him, and two, release him of any kind of negative energy that I have around him, because he was just out out his rage was just spewing out, because it was suppressed emotions of fear, pain, anger that was just really, really triggered. But rarely do we understand our parents and go down the rabbit hole of their childhood. We just look at them as our parents. We don't look at them as, oh, they had childhood too. And what was their childhood like? So one of the first questions I ask with my clients when we go down that rabbit hole is, tell me about your parents. What was their childhood like? And 10 out of 10 times, it was just, no, it was not good. And some people don't know what their parents' childhood was like, which is kind of sad. And then they get kind of curious about it. I'm like, well, if your mom is an alcoholic, there is a reason why. Or if she's bipolar, it's not like, nobody, in my personal opinion, no one is born with a mental health issue. No one is born an alcoholic. If you have, your mom is an alcoholic and you have two uncles that are alcoholics or died from alcohol poisoning, and you don't know what happened to them as children, you probably, and you're having some issues with relationships or addiction or something else in your life, you should really go down the rabbit hole of figuring that out and getting curious, because curiosity is really going to open up so much for you. And this is about you dealing with you. This is not about you trying to push some ideologies or some woo-woo-ness to them. It's like, get curious about your lineage and what is it that made your mom and your dad the way they are, because you are carrying that. And if you're on this healing journey, it's so much more than just your own personal wounds that you are carrying, because a lot of people have a lot of anger and hatred toward their parents that they're carrying around that is not serving them, not at all.
Think you just touched on something too really important with like more mainstream and modern therapy models, is that to enter into this work, you just need, like you said, you just need your curiosity, and you don't need the permission of anyone else to do it or their participation. And I think something that has done us, there's good in everything. But when you take highly traumatized people and you try and put them all in a therapy session and you want them to start spewing their traumas on each other in an attempt to fix a dynamic that has to be fixed from the inside out, you have to fix it individually first before you can start bringing anyone else into it, because you have to be able to enter those conversations whole and from a place of compassion and curiosity, and most importantly, observation, so that you're not absorbing what's coming at you. You can observe it and witness it and then understand how to try and move forward with it. And it's, I remember being in university and studying psychology and clinical psychology. And I'm like, no, like and this was years ago. It was long before I had any type of awakening. And it never sat well in my heart. I'm like, there's something fundamentally wrong with what is happening in this sphere. It doesn't make sense to me. And all we're watching is an industry get created that kind of is rooted in, I think, Black mentality to a certain extent, because a customer healed is a paycheck lost. So, we get stuck in these systems and these models of codependency as well, where we think we need this other person to heal us. And it's a mess. It's a mess. And we can see it everywhere we look. It's reflected in every system and structure and um, business and government and corporation. And it's everywhere. But it all
Yeah.
starts within. It all starts within.
Yeah. The psychiatry industry and therapy industry is a hot mess. A lot of times the therapist is not even doing the personal work themselves, and they are given all the tools to help the client, but they have barely done anything themselves. They could be addicts themselves. They could be having behavioral issues themselves, and it's just not a good situation. And I personally also think that, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a lot of my own viewpoints, but I think that when you work with a therapist or counselor or coach, you can only get as far as the person has gone themselves. So if you have really gone and really worked on yourself for the last 10 years, and you've done so much yoga, breath work, meditation, gone on different retreats, so much journaling, so much inner work, and now you're meeting somebody who, let's say they went to 8 years of college, but they really haven't done any work, and now they're 50 years old, and they're just used to dealing with people at a very surface level, and most people are super happy again changing your behaviors, and but you're meeting them and you're just like, I feel like I know more than you about life. Yeah. And I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
It does. And I think it's also because if you think of like mirroring principles and energetically what we attract into our lives, I always find it really interesting because, practitioners, therapists, medical professionals, I think anyone who works intimately with the public, you are always only ever attracting into your life things that you need to see about yourself, right? You're always bringing in sometimes those shadows or those blind spots. And sometimes it's the great things too that you need to be able to recognize in yourself. But you can never see any more or less than kind of your current state of being. So I think that that's always, for me, it's been a really interesting kind of evolution in my thought process when I'm working with different practitioners or with clients and kind of what's coming in, because I'm like, oh, what do I need to learn about this? Like there's something here that is teaching me or bringing me into a deeper aspect of self. And that's part of the curiosity as well. I think curiosity, we have that stupid saying that curiosity killed the cat. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. And, and I feel like that's one of those old age sayings that kind of keeps people afraid of curiosity to a certain extent. We think because curiosity has the ability to set your world on fire, like it will pull you through a rite of passage very quickly if you allow it. And that breakdown process is scary. People don't like death. We're a death phobic society, whether it's actual physical death or ego death or any type of change. So it's just so fascinating. I don't even know what else to say about it. I'm so enamored and fascinated by like the human body and its capacity to mirror and manifest our subconscious and our ancestral patterning. And I know you worked in fitness for a while, so you would see like at a deep level that mind-body connection. Because I know it's on your bio, and we talked about it before, that you've kind of done something that I've always been curious about, and it gave me a new perspective on how to do it. But you traveled the world to actually live with people and really get this integrative healing process. And then at one point, you opened your home to create your own retreat with your husband to really allow people to immerse themselves into what a healing environment can look like. That's not rehab or detox or something that feels very clinical, but something that feels very receptive and warm and caring and compassionate.
What I have found in doing that work is most people have never felt unconditional love. So they don't even know how to take care of themselves. And again, back when I was living with people, I was trying to fix a very surface level, but it was so much deeper than that. And now 10 years after I've done the work, because I wasn't doing the work back then, I thought it was just like, oh, let's just make some healthy food, which is fun. I still love cooking, but it was very surface. And cooking healthy food is fun and amazing. But if you're not healthy in your mind, you can never be healthy in your body. Because I've seen some people that look really good on the outside, but they're really struggling on the inside. And at some point, it's going to come out, whether it's a physical illness like cancer, cystic fibrosis, PCOS, an autoimmune disorder, anything, any of those things. It's going to come out somehow, some way. Your hair is going to fall out. You're going to lose your voice. There's going to be something. And the suppression of who we are, we can hide it for so long. We can hide it for so long. The world's going to eventually see it. Like I said, if it's not going to come out in an illness, it's going to come out somehow, some way. You're going to end up sick, and nobody's going to have the diagnosis. And when somebody starts, because you're not going to all of a sudden start losing your hair and go to the doctor and be like, oh, this is the reason why you're losing your hair. 9 times out of 10, the doctor is not going to ask you what's going on at home. What is your stress like? Are you dealing with past trauma? They're probably just going to give you some like ointment to help you grow your hair back. They're not really helping you get to the root cause. So until you actually can show your emotions and fix what's up here, it's just not going to work. And eating healthy is really important, and working out is really great too. And it doesn't have to be going to the gym. It just has to be moving your body around somehow, some way. And eating healthy doesn't mean eating dried chicken breast and dried broccoli for every meal either. If you want to have pizza every day, like by all means, but I'd rather you not eat the best and be really good in the head. I mean, there's people that smoke cigarettes until they're 90 years old every single day they live forever. You hear these stories, or take like a glass of wine every single day. You hear these stories, but that's a rare occasion because there's so many of us that are struggling so much with our emotions, our mental space. And let me not go down the road of SSRIs and benzodiazepines too, because that is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the side effects that carry on from taking those kind of medications for too long, which is when somebody puts you on an SSRI, they're not saying, oh, well, let's put you on an SSRI and 3 months down the road, you can get off of it. It's like, there's no end goal here. It's like, oh, let's numb you a little bit, and then you can carry on with your life. And maybe you might be on this for forever, but we're not going to tell you about that. We're also not going to tell you any of the side effects. You could possibly, who knows, there's so many side effects. I just got off the phone with somebody who started having tremors about 6 years ago. And now she looks like she has Parkinson's. And I think it's a side effect of an SSRI, really just talking to her about it. But this is kind of the stuff like no one really talks about. This is like long-term side effects of chemicals that men put together to numb your emotions. Emotions are there for a reason. Anger and sadness are not negative emotions. They are emotions just as much as happiness is, and joy and excitement. When you put an SSRI in your body, your sadness doesn't go away. I understand it. It just suppresses it a little bit. You're not able to be in your bowels of your deep depression, but you're also not able to feel extremely happy either. So you can experience excitement, but not the excitement that you want. I had a client who just bought her dream house, and her husband got angry at her because she didn't seem very excited. Well, guess what? She was on an antidepressant. So she's just like, wow, I did not realize that I could not get that excited. This is really affecting me way more than I think it is. And I know it's my antidepressant. So she's weaning herself off of them and just really being able to see how much it affected her. But it took her buying that dream house of hers to realize, like, there's something wrong here. Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not hating on anyone that takes those kind of medications, but I do want to say that they should be taken if they are taken. If I'm Yeah, I am kind of against them. If they are taken, there should be work that's done with it. Like, I'm going to a therapist, I'm doing all the things to work on myself, and I'm not going to be on this for forever.
I think this is a really important conversation, especially at this time. I'm in Canada. A lot of my audience is in Canada, and we have universal health care, which is awful. And we've also just gone through a really long collective dark night of the soul with the pandemic. And part of my journey, and we're going to loop this all back around. Part of my journey in 2015, I had my wisdom teeth extracted and ended up with such a severe infection that it ended up being like a near fatal experience for me. And I was hospitalized for about 3 weeks. No one could figure out what to do. I had a full infectious disease team. I had a full oral surgery team. Like, they were just flabbergasted at what was happening. And then when I left the hospital, I couldn't open my mouth. My masseter muscle had just completely atrophied. The best I could do was get like a fingernail between my mouth or between my teeth. And I'm going to physio, I'm going to see other surgeons. And I was literally handed a stack of tongue depressors and told to start putting them between my teeth to essentially wedge and shim my face open to try and get this muscle back. And it was locked, like nothing was going to happen. And someone introduced me to a chiropractor who, she's no crack. She only works on the central nervous system. And I got in to see her. And within 2 weeks, she had my mouth open because she was working on the energy meridians of my body. And she was working on my emotional body. And some of the information that bubbled up during that conversation blew my mind. But I was still just on the edge of awareness. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. But then 2 years later, I found myself in like debilitating burnout. And I had left the country. I had a new job. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. I crashed and burned really, really hard. But my life experience um, with people who were deeply entrenched in the mental health system, who had been on medications for 20 plus years, watching the side effects. So, watching kidney failure, the liver malfunctioning, angina attacks presenting as full blown heart attacks, severe weight loss, deep depression, like just the horrors of the mental health intervention and the lack of support that existed. So you get thrown on all of these medications. You're given psychiatrists because most people, when you need that type of psychiatric care, cannot afford to pay for it out of pocket. Usually people who are in the depths of that kind of mental illness aren't able to work. So you don't have the luxury of having a private healthcare plan. You are at the mercy of this so-called wonderful universal healthcare system. And having been traumatized just 2 years prior by the hospital system with my wisdom teeth and knowing what I had witnessed growing up, I'm like, nah, like, did I just inherit this? Oh my God. Like, I'm at rock bottom. I'm depressed. Oh my God, I'm like a victim of my genetics. And I'm like, this can't be, it can't be. And I refused to go down that road. And then that's when I had started doing a lot of research, and the words literally dark night of the soul caught my attention. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then I had started seeking out alternative practitioners, and they were willing to do the soul work. And they are the people that taught me, oh, darkness, natural. You just need to learn how to sit in it for a little bit. And you need to learn how to respect it for what it is. And you need to learn how to have compassion for it and to not try and rush your way through it. And then you need to learn how to kind of move on from it and know that this is going to happen again, but you're building the resiliency to get through it. And I think it's really important too in the conversation is a lot of people are starting to come up against this because they're tired of feeling numb and they're tired of feeling um, pushed against a wall for the better part of their life. But it also takes patience because when you want to start transitioning off of these medications, like there are real consequences to this. And the chelation process is not short. It can take years to do it. So you also have to build the fortitude and the resilience and cultivate the patience that's required to allow it to happen as it's intended and how nature is going to best support you, because you cannot just like snap off of these. And I think that's the danger of it, because it is such an arduous process to move away from it, that it can also scare people and cause them to go, nope, I'm going to keep this safety blanket because it's very scary on the other side of this.
Yeah. And you're usually way off when you get off of them. Especially if you go cold turkey, than when you first got on them. So you are going to not only have brain fog, nausea, sleepless nights, but your emotions are going to be a train wreck. Like,
Yeah. And you've been told up until that point that it's a chemical deficiency and you're deficient and you need this. So then it's that reliance and the lack and the scarcity
right,
programming that and the victim consciousness that will throw you back into it very quickly.
right. The SSRI deficiency is a complete hoax, and it's a lie. And it's a lie that the industry pharma has come up with. If you don't believe me, I highly suggest you do some research. No one is born with an SSRI or a serotonin deficiency. No one is born with a chemical imbalance called depression. These things do not exist. And yeah, no. Sorry, my husband's coming home at the door.
Uh, no, absolutely. And I know a pivotal change for me was, understanding the three brain system that we have in our body. So it's the gut, the heart, and the head. But
Yes,
that your neurochemistry starts in your gut. And without that foundation of nutrition, you're screwed. You are screwed.
Exactly. Exactly. And in order for you to really get rebalanced, it takes determination. Like you said, a big thing is patience. Most people don't want that patience. The percentage of the medication and how it affects you and how you wean yourself off, it's going to take some time, especially if you've been on the medication for a decade plus. And like I said, most doctors, they're so easy to hand you this medication, but there's no time to get off of them.
And it's interesting, like we're having this conversation. We're not medical professionals. We're speaking from experience that, through our own personal experiences, sitting and bearing witness to other people, and also just observing what's happened over the past couple of years, right? There is a cultural shift. There's something happening now where these systems and paradigms are showing that they cannot be trusted. They have not earned the trust that they've been given. And again, that's part of the inner work that we're all being called to do right now. And something I've been doing a lot of work on with myself is like the restoration and rebalancing of the feminine, right? And I know you do a lot of work with women, and your story is deeply rooted in kind of your feminine ancestry. And we're being called right now. We're seeing it play out around us in gender wars and what it means to be a woman. People seem to have a really hard time defining that for some reason. But we sit back and we look at the world as kind of like a patriarchy, but we're never really thinking about it in terms of the energetics and the balance of the energetics and the fact that we have to balance it within ourselves first. And as I kind of dive into this work more deeply for myself, I'm understanding that, you know what, women, as mad as you might be at the external, we might have to go first on this, just because that restoration of the feminine energy allows us to be within ourselves first, but create the containers and the communities and the support systems and networks that allow us to ease into the vulnerability and the compassion and the authenticity that's required to manifest this change in the external world. And that begins through like nurturing and healing our intuition, knowing what's right, knowing at a core level to be able to really tap into and trust our gut that like, this is not right. What I'm being told doesn't feel good. It doesn't align with, you may not realize that it's a higher truth at this time, but it's just not making sense. Like, I'm rambling here, but I feel like we have to take the focus off of everything outside of ourselves right now and really turn it inside. And I think as women, we have to start embracing our femininity, but what that actually means, which is at an energetic point that we can tap into our intuition and we can be vulnerable and compassionate and create the spaces for masculinity to balance itself out as well.
Absolutely. And funny that you're talking about female energy and all this stuff. So Mother's Day is coming up next Sunday in the US, and I have not spoken to my own mom in 11 and a half years due to shunning of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And last year I made her a video for my YouTube channel, and that I posted on Facebook and on Instagram. And it was kind of like a, hey, I know you still look at my social media, but I also kind of wanted to acknowledge her and thank her for my existence. And this time I told my husband, I'm like, I have now a blog and a website, and I'm like, I just feel like writing. So I started writing about, I feel that mommy-daughter relationships are so romanticized in the world. And this mother figure, this hierarchy of unconditional love and support and nurturing and la la la, like this, such beautifulness. But I always would get so like enraged when Mother's Day came around, or when I saw these like mommy daughter kind of like closeness movies and TV shows. I get a little bit jealous, and I get a little bit angry, and then I get really sad. It's like, man, fuck that. I didn't have that kind of mom. So going with that, I decided a couple of weeks ago that I was going to write a series of posts talking about the mother-daughter relationship, the mother wound, healing the abandonment issues if you do not have emotionally available mom or dad or either one. And then I've recently talked about mother being the narcissist and opening up that conversation. And if your mom isn't a full-blown narcissist, does she have narcissistic qualities? And did you inherit any of those narcissistic qualities? And really opening that up.
No, I just like that you said, did you inherit those qualities as well? Because we see it in other people and we fail to recognize it in ourselves, and we all have a little.
Oh,
bit.
yeah. So. I think having a narcissistic qualities, I think we all have that to an extent. But if you're a child of a narcissistic parent, you're constantly seeking out that love and that validation from your parent, but your parent is not even capable of that love. And you might be like, well, my mom does love me, but she has all the narcissistic qualities. You might have convinced yourself that she loves you, and maybe she shows you ways that she does love you. And narcissist does not mean that your mom or your father was not nice to you. Like, my mom has been nice to me plenty of times, but it's usually like in front of people and to make herself look good. And
yeah, it's just this kind of twisted and demented way of mothering. Also, the emotional capacity of them is like zero. So emotional closeness is zero. And yeah, so I wanted to be that voice for people who are feeling unvalidated in their mother-daughter romanticized relationship and have not been given the voice, because there's a huge void in our world of the mother-daughter dynamic not working out and not being the best friend, the caretaker, the nurturer, and feeling like guilty for not having that relationship with your mom, and then setting boundaries with your mother if she has been critical, if she has been aggressive, if she's tried to control your life. And yeah, letting go of that guilt, working with the grief, and accepting the fact that you didn't have the mom that you needed or wanted, and then not feeling the need to find a partner to fill the mommy issue voids of like, oh, I'm still looking for that love that my mom never gave me or my dad never gave me in another relationship. It's usually a partner relationship. It's like really healing that yourself, breaking the umbilical cord and just going back to yourself again. I'm not blaming anyone, but just recognizing and including that understanding of where it ends with me. Like for me, it's like my generational trauma, like it ends with me. I just want to find myself again, returning back to home. Essentially, we're all trying to return back to home, all the people, the wounded healer. That's who I am. And I just really want to just constantly check back in with myself. Is this really who I am, or is this something that is part of my collection of different energies, like we were talking about other? Is this my mother? Is this my father? Is this my current husband? This is my ex-husband that I was with 10 years ago. Like I need to find me in all of this, and keep on going back to yourself, and just really checking with yourself, getting curious back to that magic core that we've been using this whole time.
And the way this is playing out, like this mother-daughter wound is playing out, I think, we've been actively watching systemically, like the destruction of the nuclear family for at least 50 years at this point, right? And we've normalized divorce, we've normalized single parent families, and something that happens, because more times than not, it's usually the single mom who has the responsibility of being financially and emotionally responsible for their children. Not in all cases, but in some cases, like this whole healthy co-parenting thing is still really new. If it even exists, I don't know. But you have this imbalanced energy. You have the woman who also has to go deeply into her masculine, and maybe more than she really should. And we also have the rise now of social media. We have an entire generation that does not know life without social media. And so when you take your mother wound, where you may not have felt seen or heard, or properly cared for in the way that you needed to be, and you now are in a position to be raising your own children, and you so desperately want to break the cycles or not have the relationship that you experienced, that it now becomes an aesthetic and it's being projected on social media. So I relate to what you're saying about the relationship appearing one way but feeling another. Only now it's being broadcasted, and like I don't have photos and captions circulating around my life to remind me of what that felt like as a kid. But we have an entire generation now that does. And there's like this gaslighting. And I'm careful with labels like narcissism and gaslighting and toxic. Like I'm careful with those labels, but like kids are being gaslit into what their relationships are. And there's like this push-pull of how it feels versus what it looks like, how it's being presented, and now how I have to show up in order to fulfill that. And then there's the I'm not allowed to be angry about it.
Right.
And what I'm seeing now in kind of more new age circles and the conversations around how to deal with your parents is you cut them off. Like people are so quick now to go, I have inner child trauma and it's all your fault and you're a narcissistic parent and now I'm going to cut you off because I don't want to deal with it. And that's not going to work either. So there's this really interesting space right now, which I think is what this conversation is kind of filling about how you have to go back inside, because on the opposite side of traditional therapy doesn't work is this other kind of predatory, I'm going to feed your narcissistic feelings about your situation and lead you to believe that you have to cut all of these people off. And it's going to create just a pendulum swing. And we have to find a way to kind of sit in the eye of the storm and find our center around this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's like you have to go back to self. There's no other way around it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel that there's a lot of women like myself that didn't have that relationship they had with their mom, and they want it so badly. So every time they see their mom, they interact with her, they're hoping, like, I've done all the work and I picked up some healthy healing habits and the proper vocabulary. Maybe if I give this to my mom, she'll get it, that she wasn't the mom that I needed, and maybe she'll change. So there's always this hope and constantly bringing that energy. And then mom is just showing up the same person every single time you see her. She's not changed, and you're changing and you're healing and you're working on yourself, but she hasn't. And now she's getting on your nerves even more because you're just like, what the fuck, mom? I've had it. What is wrong with you? There's this book, emotionally children, oh my gosh, Intelligent Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And it talks about how, I'm totally not saying the title right, but it talks about how when you mature as a child, when you mature as an adult emotionally and your parents do not, it's very difficult then to come into a relationship with your parents. If, like I said, you've worked on yourself so much and they haven't, you're met with this constant conflict of not knowing how to act. And then you're constantly walking on eggshells around them, almost like there's a bomb ready to explode, because you're just like, well, I can't say this because then they will act this way, but I want to really have that relationship with them. So yeah, it's this tug and pull relationship that you have with your parents, and it's exhausting. And then the outcome is just dealing with them at an outcome level where you're just like, you don't want to have that relationship anymore. I think that's more of a proper way of dealing with people that are not going to change, is you just accept them as they are. And then you look at it as an outcome. You're not really looking at it to build more of a relationship, because they're not really interested. Even though you're interested, they're not interested. So you're just maybe having dinner with them and not really talking about really deep stuff. You're just talking about really surface-ish kind of stuff. And then again, in my situation, like if you're asking them more personal questions, intimate questions, you might stir them up and they might get really angry. Why are you asking me that question? Why do you want to know this about me? But at some point it kind of has to just be like very surface.
Yeah. And I think what you're illustrating too is like that deeper, like we can always go deeper. It's just when you think you hit your ceiling, you can always go a little bit deeper. And it's just another level of the work that we're, I think, being called to do on this journey. Is like, you can't change anyone else, and you can't expect them to be moving in the same direction as you either. And at one point, I know for myself, it's like, okay, like I'm doing the work. That's enough. That's enough. It ends with me anyway. So I'm doing the work. It's enough. And I can find ways to show up and be present, and also pay attention to maybe what I might need to give a little bit more to myself. And it's interesting because also of the generation of women that are not having children, right? I'm sitting here, I just turned 39 and I'm like, damn, I spent so much time not wanting kids because I didn't think I could do it well. I was so wounded. I didn't know that I could do it well. And now I'm like, oh boy, what does this look like now going forward? Ooh, I'm getting like crazy buzzing in my ear. I just had a major shift here. Having this conversation. But yeah, it's like these are the things that are bubbling up, and this is how it's manifesting and materializing in the external world. We're just throwing ourselves so deep into our masculine, and then we're like, I don't need a man, I don't need to have kids, I can do everything on my own. And like it, it's so much. It's so much, but we're not getting at the heart of the conversation.
I hear you loud and clear. I'm 43 and I decided not to have kids either. I think at first it was definitely enmeshed with my mother wound of not wanting to be the mother that my mother was to me. Like I had that deep anger and resentment and pain for that. But once I feel that that was healed, then I really got to look at myself and do I really want kids? There was a time where I felt like I could, and me and my husband tried for a couple of years and I never got pregnant. But I'm to the point where I feel that I'm not supposed to have kids. The work I do with my clients is super deep and super intense and very personal. And I think that if I had a child right now, it would take away the closeness and the bond that I could have with a child. I'm still able to have children. So if I got pregnant, I would obviously take it. I've never been pregnant in my life, but I work completely fine. My husband works completely fine. I've never been pregnant before, like I said. So I don't feel like I want kids. I also want to talk about this. The book that I mentioned is called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. Such a good book. Also recommend a book called Will I Ever Be Good Enough? Healing the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. Such a fucking awesome book. Both of those read in the last couple of months, and just really a game changer for me to understand my parents and their dynamics and how they played a part again with me, because I'm constantly just trying to understand myself. Understanding myself is helping me understand the world way much, way better. Way much. It's not really a word. But yeah, children and why we choose not to have children. And then you were saying to stepping into that masculine role of, or I can do everything and I don't need anybody and I can still have children and I can do it by myself. And it's just like really aggressive and also like not really doing something for us, because our emotional side is really important too. And we kind of desensitize from that if we're really stepping into that heavy masculine energy. And I definitely feel too that the labels, like sometimes I feel more masculine and sometimes I feel more feminine, and to kind of go toward both of those roles is really important. But to think you can do it all by yourself is not healthy either.
No, we're communal creatures. We're built to be in community. And you know, one of the things that was preyed on over the last 3 years was that deep primal fear of extrication from the tribe, right?
Mm.
We To be removed from the tribe is sudden death in our like monkey brain or lizard brain. And it's a very powerful it's a very powerful persuasive tool. And I know that you went through a shunning process, so you understand
Mm.
what it's like to kind of go through that death of losing everyone and everything that's familiar. And a lot of people went through that over the past couple of years or conformed to avoid it. And it's again, I think it's what we're being called to explore and get curious within ourselves, because what we're also getting down to is like worthiness and value and intrinsic value, and really taking the material and the monetary aspect of value and really flipping it on its head, to determine that it's inside out. It's our God-given value that we are here to figure out how to unearth and extract, so that we can move through this world and have this human experience in a way that restores the compassion and the empathy and the love, that I think we're here to create.
Yeah, when you were talking about shunning, I really resonate with that word, because not only was I shunned from the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I was also shunned from my family. I don't really have a relationship with them, but I feel that when you do something that's so different than the normal and you're causing a stir, people get freaked out and they rather just dismiss you than to understand why you're acting the way you're acting. It's way easier to just say, nope, never going to talk to you again, versus, can you just tell me what's going on? Uh, like taking down the veil and really understanding why the person is acting a certain way. People don't really care anymore. They just kind of want to dismiss, go on, and then hold anger and resentment around that person. Yeah, it's really scary and it's sad. And for me, going back to getting shunned from the Jehovah's Witnesses, religion is a fear-based organization, and that's, for me, it's all religion, no matter what religion it is. It's fear-based, and religion preys upon vulnerable people. And sure, people join churches for community, but I'm talking about sex, and I'm talking about really strict religion that makes you conform to so many different things that are just, they're not natural. And yeah, the shunning process, I would not wish that upon my own enemy. It was the worst thing I've ever been through in my entire life. And no one can really understand it unless you've been through it. Like I lost my entire community, and you have to pretend that they're dead. And I still think about certain people that I was friends with, certain women that helped raise me, and they're still alive, but they'll never speak to me again. And it's is still painful and it's destructive. I mean, there's people that got shunned from the Jehovah's Witnesses that end up killing themselves. There's thousands. People don't talk about it. It's just, yeah, the shunning is just, it's really, really strong. But my contribution in the ex Jehovah's Witness space of people who get shunned or faded, as they say, is I have a YouTube channel where I interview people and I help them share their stories, because I think people's life stories are so fascinating, and getting to know somebody on such a vulnerable level. So I hone in on their story as a Jehovah's Witness, and then their story of them, how they left and where they are today. And I stick with people who are in a good headspace, because I want to show the organization that, so when you're in the Jehovah's Witnesses, and if you're not familiar with this, it's a cult, and they make you feel that if you leave them one day, or if you get excommunicated like I did, you're going to be a prostitute, a drug dealer, or a drug user, an addict, a gambler. Like, you're going to be a worthless piece of shit on the streets. You're going to be nothing without them. So I want to show with my channel, with all the interviews that I'm doing, is you can have a really amazing life outside of the religion, and you actually can be so much bigger than them. And when you actually expand and learn more about your world, you make them look small. And that's also part of the healing process. And then when we're talking about curiosity and critical thinking, it's not even allowed. Like, meditation and yoga is not allowed in the Jehovah's Witnesses, in the Jehovah's Witness world. And I know that yoga and meditation is also not allowed in other religions too. But guess what? That means that you're not even allowed to think for yourself. And thinking for yourself, that critical thinking, is so important. So it's not even about thinking for yourself. It's being in touch with your instinct and your gut feelings. So there's so many people around the earth that are so out of touch with their instinct and their gut feelings that they have to go to religion, the media, the news for how to live their life. Like, what? Why?
It's that permission-based society that we've created, which deeply sits inside of the feminine wounding, where we feel like we have to twist and contort ourselves to meet our surroundings instead of just holding space to say, take me or leave me. This is who I am. Right. It's hard. And I know with the Grand Rising experience and what I'm seeking to do, and it's always evolving, is to create like a new form of what I like to call truth media, which is it all starts within. And there is no external force that can ever tell you who you are or enter in as the middleman between you and that higher power. And we have an entire society built around third party situations, right? There's always a middleman somewhere. And the more you can figure out how to remove that middleman, the much closer you get to incredible successes. And I've done it myself through my own spiritual journey, but also through the pandemic and teaching businesses how to stay open and feed their families and keep a roof over their head. Because when you understand the middleman, you understand a pathway through it. But that has to be learned from the inside out. Like I can sit here and I can teach you how to write notices and write letters and teach you about like jurisdiction contracts and capacity and how to deal with it in the external world, but you can't uphold and defend it if you don't know how to do it within yourself first. And that was the major pivotal point for me in what I was doing. I did have a media company that was teaching this and really exploring it. But when push came to shove, people lacked the fortitude and the resilience and the courage and the curiosity to be able to actually maintain it, because fears would creep in, things would creep in that would scare them, legitimate fears. But you have to figure out what hill, I guess, you're willing to die on in terms of, do you want to live your life for you or do you want to live it for someone else? Do you want to take charge and power back and autonomy and sovereignty over yourself? Because you can't get it externally. You'll never find it externally. It emanates from the inside out. And I know that's, I shouldn't say I know, but that's what I'm hearing from you when you describe your journey. It's this like autonomous process. That liberates from the inside out. It starts at like the cellular level and it all has to kind of be reconstructed.
It's so true. And I think that so many people are so content with monotony and just the whole hum life that people like me who are just like really want to dive into everything about the human existence is maybe looked at it as weird. But it's like, why am I the weird one? You're probably the weird one because you've had the same job from when you were 18 to now you're 64 and you're retired and you still live in the same neighborhood that your parents grew up in, and you have probably not left the country that you were born in, and maybe once on a weekend cruise. And it's like there's so many people like that out there. And then when I meet people like that, they say it's about the money, but then they're buying the third car and the summer house, and it's never about money. It's about priorities and about desires and about what you want, and it boils down to being comfortable and not getting out of your comfort zone. And the longer you've sat in your comfort zone, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the more scary it's going to be to even leave.
Yeah, I heard this quote. It was a while ago, but I loved it. And it came from like a really unexpected place. And it's a quote from John Mayer. And he was talking about his wardrobe and he was describing a pair of shoes. And he said, 1,000 scuffs creates a new kind of shine. And I love it because it really gets at the point. It hits at the idea that, okay, you get something or you have something and it's shiny and it's new and you really want to care for it and you want to keep it in this pristine condition, but you can't avoid it. Like eventually it's going to get weathered. And then it will get to the point that you either decide to toss it away and get rid of it, or because you like the way it feels and because it doesn't give you blisters anymore, maybe it's worth investing in. And you have to be willing to maybe repair the soul that, the pathway of your life has kind of put a few holes in. And then over time, it's just like what looked battered and broken just becomes beautiful and vintage. And there's a patina on it that you could only get to if you didn't throw it away. I don't know. I just love that quote. And for me, it's kind of like what this whole process is like when you feel your most broken, you are just on the verge of something so beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And your darkest night is going to lead to your best mornings. It does take time. Be patient. Takes years, and don't rush it. And when people tell you, why do you keep on going back and thinking about the past and working on the past? It's your own personal journey. So if you've been down that path for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, it's okay. And realize that if you have a lot of anger, I'm sorry, one more thing. If you have a lot of anger, Eckhart Tolle says, where there's anger, there's always pain. If you're not going to acknowledge your pain that's underneath your anger, this healing process is not going to work. And the pain is going to feel really painful, but you need to feel it. And once you open it, it could feel like it's never going to end, but it's going to end, because that's not how emotions work. They're going to come and go. And maybe you'll cry one day when you're at the grocery store and down an aisle for no reason. And that will happen for a while, but it's going to go away. You're going to look down the path years later. You're like, fuck, I was in shit for a while. And now I'm doing pretty good. And I'm proud of myself for allowing myself to get that low before, because I needed that low to get to here. And I was so scared to do it.
The time's going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. It's just, how are you going to do it?
Exactly.
So if this has been an interesting conversation, because we've taken it in so many different directions. And I think we've talked about things that some people are just not comfortable speaking about, or maybe they've never heard. But if they are intrigued and curious about you and how they can work with you, what are some of your offerings? How can people connect with you, and what could they expect?
Well, you can find me on social media at VevianVoz.com, Vevian Voz on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Vevian Vozmediano is my full last name, but my husband's like, Voz is shorter, more concise. So I offer one-on-one calls and one-on-one in-person sessions. And I also hold retreats in Costa Rica with plant medicine. I work with psilocybin, mescaline, and LSD, and hold very small, intimate retreats, because for me, it's all about safety, and safety for me is a small container. So it's myself plus 3 women is what my container is. And I choose to keep it small because, again, it's all about safety, vulnerability, and connection. And that for me is huge, and helping people through that. It's so important to have that small container. But yeah, those are my offerings. I do work with psilocybin and do private journeys in different places of the world. I know it's not legal, but it's been something I've been doing for the last 4 years. But yeah, I also have, I'm a trauma-informed life and wellness coach. I'm certified in compassion inquiry, which is a psychosomatic approach by Gabor Mate. And it's something I'm really passionate about, and just helping people connect to their most authentic self and breaking their belief systems, helping them create new stories of themselves.
I love it. You are really exemplifying what it means to, turn your mess into your medicine, and use it to not only heal yourself, but heal others, and give others the permission to, I guess, see their possibilities inside of your reality. And I think that's it's one of the most beautiful things that you can offer the world. And I'm so grateful that you were able to share that with the Grand Rising community.
Thank you, Nicole. I really loved this conversation, and thank you for letting me go into all kinds of directions and not like steering me, I should say, to be a certain way. I really appreciate it. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I love it. I think the only way we can have true, authentic conversations is to not put any boundaries on them, and just to allow them to unfold as they are intended to, and to not stifle or control or contort. So That's my mission, and that's how I plan on unfolding this.
I love it. Thank you.
There are so many nuggets of wisdom that bubbled up during this conversation, but if we can leave you with anything, it is the concept of building your capacity for curiosity. Curiosity has the power and ability to fundamentally transform your life. Because as I said, curiosity didn't kill the cat. It's why we know the cat has 9 lives. And again, I think it's important to reiterate that healing, while it is a very individual process, it doesn't have to happen in isolation. Allow your curiosity to lead you to teachers and mentors and coaches and guides that can support you at different phases and depths of your journey. If you found value in this episode, if it moved you, if it resonated, if it can be of use to someone you know, please share, like, and subscribe, or head over to grandrisingexperience.substack.com to join the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I love you.